My dog came home with an alien girl, and I was surprised by his affection for her. Ethan Carter had lived near the woods for most of his life. His house sat at the edge of a quiet road where cars passed only a few times a day. The trees behind his backyard were tall and thick, and at night they made soft sounds that most people found unsettling. Ethan did not mind them. The woods felt honest to him, simple and steady, much like his dog. Buddy was a mixed-breed dog with brown fur and white paws. He was not large, but he was strong and alert. Ethan found him years ago as a thin puppy near a gas station. Since then, Buddy had followed him everywhere with calm loyalty. He was not loud or wild. He listened, watched, and stayed close. When Buddy went into the woods, he always came back before dark. That evening felt normal at first. The sun was low, painting the sky orange and soft purple. Ethan stood on the porch with a cup of warm coffee while Buddy wandered toward the trees. Ethan watched him disappear between the trunks, his tail moving slowly. There was no worry in Ethan's mind. Buddy knew the area better than any map. Time passed. The sky grew darker. The first stars appeared. Ethan checked his watch and frowned slightly. Buddy was late. Not very late, but late enough to notice. Ethan called his name once, then twice. His voice carried into the woods, but nothing answered back. Ethan felt a small twist in his chest. He told himself not to worry. Animals sometimes chased smells or sounds. Still, he stayed on the porch, eyes fixed on the tree line. Then he heard movement. Leaves shifted. Branches snapped softly. Something was coming out of the woods. Buddy appeared first. He walked slowly, not running like he usually did. His ears were alert and his body was tense. Ethan stood up straight, relief mixing with confusion. He was about to call out when he noticed something strange. Buddy was not alone. Behind him stepped a figure that did not belong in the woods or anywhere near Ethan's home. It was a girl, small and thin, with skin that shimmered faintly under the fading light. Her hair was pale and uneven, like it had been cut with shaking hands. Her eyes were large and reflective, catching the light in a way that made them glow softly. She wore torn clothing made of a material Ethan did not recognize. Ethan froze. His mind tried to find normal answers: a lost child, a costume, a trick of the light. None of them fit. The girl's skin was not human. Her fingers were too long. Her movements were careful, almost floating, as if gravity treated her differently. Buddy stopped a few steps in front of Ethan and sat down. The dog looked up at him, calm and steady, as if nothing was wrong. The girl stopped behind Buddy, half hidden by his body. Her hands shook. Her chest moved fast as she breathed. Her eyes stayed locked on Ethan, filled with fear but also something else. Hope, maybe. Ethan's heart pounded hard. Every part of him wanted to step back, to shut the door, to pretend this was not happening. But Buddy did not move. The dog stayed between Ethan and the girl, not in warning but in protection. Ethan had seen Buddy act protective before. Once, when a drunk man came too close at night. Once, when a wild animal crossed the yard. But this was different. Buddy was not guarding Ethan from her. He was guarding her from the world. Ethan slowly set his coffee cup down. "Hey," he said softly, more to Buddy than to the girl. "You're back." Buddy's tail moved once against the ground. Ethan took a careful step forward. The girl flinched. Her shoulders tightened and she made a small sound, almost like a gasp. Buddy immediately stood and leaned closer to her, brushing her leg with his side. She relaxed just a little. Ethan stopped moving. "It's okay," he said, though he was not sure who he was speaking to. "I'm not going to hurt anyone." The girl did not answer. She clearly did not understand his words, but she watched his face closely, as if studying the shape of his voice. Ethan noticed marks on her arms, thin lines dark against her skin. Some looked like burns. Others looked like restraints had once been there. His stomach tightened. Whatever she was hurt. Ethan looked at Buddy again. "Did you find her out there?" Buddy's ears twitched. He did not leave her side. Ethan sighed slowly. His fear was still there, sitting heavy in his chest, but something else was stronger. Curiosity, yes, but also responsibility. Buddy trusted this girl. Buddy had brought her home. Ethan trusted his dog. "Let's go inside," Ethan said carefully. He opened the door a little wider and stepped back, giving them space. Buddy moved first, walking inside without hesitation. The girl stayed frozen at the doorway, staring at the dark space beyond the door. Strange lights blinked softly on the walls as the house lights came on. She recoiled slightly. Buddy turned and nudged her gently with his nose. She looked down at him. Slowly, with careful steps, she crossed the threshold. The door closed behind them with a quiet click. The sound made the girl jump. Buddy immediately pressed against her legs again, grounding her. Ethan noticed how her breathing slowed when Buddy touched her. Inside, the house was simple. Wooden floors, worn furniture, warm light, nothing sharp or threatening. Ethan kept his hands visible and moved slowly. "You can sit," he said, pointing gently to the couch. The girl did not sit. She stayed near the door, eyes moving everywhere. She watched the ceiling, the walls, the windows, as if expecting them to break open. Ethan grabbed a blanket from a chair and placed it on the floor near the couch. He then sat down on the opposite side of the room, leaving plenty of distance. Buddy lay down next to the girl, his body angled toward her protectively. She hesitated, then slowly lowered herself to the floor beside him. Her fingers brushed his fur, unsure at first. Buddy let out a quiet, content sound. Her shoulders relaxed. Ethan watched silently. Every detail felt unreal, but the emotions were clear. Fear, exhaustion, relief. Ethan went to the kitchen and returned with a bowl of water. He set it on the floor and stepped back. The girl sniffed the air, then crouched low and drank carefully. She winced once, as if the cold surprised her. He brought food next, simple bread and fruit. She examined it, unsure, then looked at Buddy. Buddy sniffed the bread and licked it once. Satisfied, the girl took a small bite. Tears welled in her eyes. Ethan felt a tight ache in his chest. He turned his head slightly, giving her privacy. As the night deepened, the girl grew more tired. She curled beside Buddy, pulling her knees close. Buddy shifted to make space, resting his head near her shoulder. Ethan covered them both with the blanket. He sat there for a long time, listening to the sounds of the house. Outside, the woods were quiet, too quiet. Ethan did not know it yet, but somewhere far beyond the trees, something was searching. Lights moved in the sky, hidden by clouds and distance. Signals passed through space, cold and precise. For now, though, there was only a small house, a loyal dog, and a frightened alien girl who had found safety by following kindness. And in that quiet moment, Ethan understood one thing clearly. Whatever she was running from, it was not as strong as the bond that had brought her to his door. The morning came slowly. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting soft shapes on the wooden floor. Ethan sat on the edge of the couch, careful not to disturb Buddy or the girl. She was still asleep, curled against the dog, her pale skin glowing faintly in the light. Buddy's head rested gently on her lap, eyes half closed, ears twitching occasionally. Ethan felt a strange warmth watching them. The bond between the dog and the girl was something he had never seen before. It was deep, natural, and real. He quietly stood and walked to the kitchen to make breakfast. The smell of eggs and toast filled the small house. He listened to the occasional sound from the girl, soft breathing, a faint shiver. Ethan did not want to disturb her. The night had been long for all of them. He knew she needed rest, and he also knew that she had come to him for safety. When he returned to the living room with the plate, the girl was awake. Her eyes, large and reflective, looked around cautiously. She seemed to take in every detail slowly, as if memorizing the space. Buddy stood immediately, tail wagging softly, and nudged her gently. She placed a small hand on his head, stroking the fur carefully. The dog leaned into her touch, letting out a low, satisfied sound. "Good morning," Ethan said softly. "I'm Ethan. This is Buddy." She did not respond. Instead, she tilted her head and studied him. Her eyes were curious but still wary. Ethan realized that she probably did not speak his language, or maybe any human language at all. He decided not to force words on her. Instead, he placed the plate near her and Buddy. The girl looked at the food, then at Buddy, then back at Ethan. Slowly, she reached for a piece of toast. Buddy sniffed it, then stepped back, letting her have it. She took a small bite and nodded once, a gesture that seemed to mean something like thanks. Ethan smiled quietly. Small steps. They would have to start with small steps. After breakfast, Ethan decided to give her a tour of the house. He moved slowly and spoke softly, pointing at the bathroom, the kitchen, and the bedroom. She followed, sometimes hesitating, sometimes watching Buddy for guidance. Buddy stayed close to her, his presence calming. Ethan noticed that she mirrored Buddy's movements. If Buddy sat, she sat. If Buddy tilted his head, she tilted hers. It was almost as if the dog had become a teacher for her, helping her understand the strange world she had entered. Once the tour ended, Ethan sat on the couch while the girl explored a small corner of the living room. She found a small box of crayons and a pad of paper. She stared at them for a moment, then began to draw simple shapes. Ethan watched quietly. Her hands moved slowly but with precision. Each line and circle seemed to hold meaning. Buddy lay down beside her, head resting on her knee, watching her draw with steady eyes. After a while, she looked up at Ethan. She pointed to the drawings, then to herself. Ethan nodded. He understood she was trying to communicate. He pointed to himself and said, "Ethan." Then he pointed to Buddy. "Buddy," she repeated the gesture with her finger on the page, nodding slightly. Ethan smiled. It was slow, but they were beginning to understand each other. The day passed quietly. Ethan decided it was time to learn more about her. He sat beside her on the floor and held out his hand. She hesitated, then placed her small, cool hand on his. Ethan noticed how fragile it felt, how thin her fingers were. He squeezed gently, careful not to hurt her. She looked at him, eyes wide, and did not pull away. "You're safe here," Ethan said softly. "I won't let anything hurt you." The girl seemed to understand part of what he said. She tilted her head and let out a small, soft sound, almost like a whisper. Buddy nudged her gently, as if encouraging her. Ethan watched, amazed. The dog's loyalty was more than simple instinct. It was understanding, almost like he knew exactly what she needed. By afternoon, Ethan noticed that she had grown more comfortable. She walked around the small house, examining objects, touching textures, and sometimes glancing at Buddy for reassurance. Ethan gave her space but stayed close enough to intervene if she became frightened. He noticed that she avoided the windows and doors as if afraid of the outside world. He did not push her. Instead, he waited. Trust, he thought, could not be forced. In the evening, Ethan tried to feed her something simple. He boiled some eggs and cut fruit into small pieces. She examined the food carefully, sniffing each piece. Then she picked a piece of fruit and slowly ate it, her eyes never leaving Ethan. Buddy ate first, then nudged the plate toward her. She looked at him and smiled faintly, the first real smile Ethan had seen. Her teeth were small and sharp, but the gesture was human. Ethan felt a small rush of relief. The girl was learning to accept him and his dog. After dinner, Ethan set up a small sleeping area for her on the floor, using blankets and pillows. Buddy immediately lay down beside her. She curled against him, resting her head on his side. Ethan sat nearby in a chair, watching the bond between them. The girl's breathing slowed. She was finally beginning to relax. Buddy's loyalty had given her courage she did not yet know she had. That night, Ethan could not sleep. He thought about the woods, the strange appearance of the girl, and the glowing eyes that had stared at him when he first saw her. He wondered where she had come from and what had happened to her. The marks on her arms haunted his thoughts. Ethan knew that whatever danger had followed her into the woods could still be out there. He could not ignore it, not when she was in his care. He walked quietly to the window and looked out. The trees swayed gently in the night wind. Nothing moved in the yard and no lights appeared beyond the tree line. Still, Ethan felt tension, a small ache of worry. The world was larger than he had ever imagined. Buddy stood behind him, tail brushing against his leg, sensing his concern. Ethan patted him. The dog did not speak, but his presence was comforting. Together, they watched over the girl, silent guardians in a quiet house at the edge of the woods. As days passed, Ethan began to learn more about her. She could not speak his language, but she communicated in small ways. Gestures, expressions, and touches became her words. She pointed to objects she needed or wanted. She made soft sounds when she was happy or scared. Ethan responded with patience and gentle actions. Buddy, always near her, seemed to understand her moods before Ethan did. One afternoon, Ethan tried to find out where she had come from. He brought maps and old books about the area, pointing to rivers, roads, and forests. She studied them, then pointed far to the north. Ethan nodded. He did not know what lay there, but he understood she wanted to go, or at least that something important was in that direction. She drew simple symbols in the dust on the floor. Ethan tried to match them to the maps. Nothing matched, but the effort was a start. Buddy was always with her during these moments. If she paused, uncertain, Buddy nudged her forward. If she became frightened, he pressed his body against hers. Ethan realized that the dog's loyalty was not just protection. It was teaching, guiding, and comforting. The girl's trust in Buddy was absolute. She had no fear when he was near. Ethan understood then that her bond with Buddy was stronger than most human relationships he had ever known. Evenings became calmer. Ethan, the girl, and Buddy settled into a routine. They ate together, explored slowly, and rested with minimal words. The girl never left Buddy's side, and Ethan noticed subtle changes. Her skin, once pale and dull, had a faint glow. Her eyes seemed brighter and her movements grew steadier. It was small progress, but progress nonetheless. One evening, as Ethan sat on the porch watching the sunset, the girl approached. She carried a small pile of twigs and leaves. She laid them carefully on the ground beside Buddy and looked at Ethan. Ethan understood her gesture. She was building something. With careful hands, she arranged the twigs into a small circle. Buddy sniffed and sat inside the circle. She smiled faintly, brushing his fur. Ethan realized that she was creating a small, safe space. Even in this strange world, she understood protection, trust, and loyalty. Ethan felt a deep admiration for her. She had come from somewhere unknown, alone, frightened, yet she was learning, surviving, and forming bonds. Buddy had become her teacher and friend, showing her the meaning of care and loyalty. Ethan knew that in this simple house at the edge of the woods, a remarkable story was unfolding. He did not know what dangers might come next. He did not know what mysteries surrounded the girl. But he knew this: they were together. Human, dog, and alien child. A strange family bound not by blood but by trust, courage, and care. That night, Ethan sat beside the fireplace, watching the girl and Buddy sleep. The wind whispered through the trees outside. Ethan whispered softly, more to himself than anyone else, "We'll be okay." Buddy twitched in agreement, as if he understood the promise. The girl stirred slightly in her sleep, fingers brushing Buddy's fur. For the first time, Ethan felt certain that whatever had brought her to his home, she had found a place where she belonged. And in that quiet, simple house, the bond between human, dog, and alien grew stronger each day. The next morning began quietly. Sunlight spilled into Ethan's small kitchen. The girl was already awake, sitting beside Buddy. She stroked his fur slowly, carefully, her eyes calm. Ethan entered with a plate of eggs and toast. She glanced at him but did not move. She focused on Buddy, who wagged his tail gently, happy to see Ethan. For several days, Ethan had been learning her small gestures, her ways of communicating. He called her Luna. It was a simple name, one that felt easy to say and soft to hear. Luna nodded when he said it, a small smile touching her lips. Buddy's loyalty had not wavered. He followed her wherever she went, guiding and protecting her. That day, Ethan decided to go outside for a walk. The air was fresh, and the trees whispered with a soft wind. Luna stayed inside at first but watched the yard closely. Ethan knew she was curious but still cautious. Buddy ran ahead, sniffing, exploring, then running back to Ethan's side. The dog's energy was steady, controlled. He always stayed near Luna, even at a distance. As Ethan walked toward the woods, he noticed something strange. The underbrush seemed disturbed. Leaves were bent and crushed in unusual ways. Footprints, large and not human, were pressed into the soft soil. Ethan's heart beat faster. He motioned Buddy to stop. The dog crouched slightly, tail lowered but alert. Ethan scanned the woods carefully. Suddenly, movement appeared. Shadows slipped between the trees. Ethan froze. The shadows moved quickly, silent but deliberate. Shapes appeared that were unfamiliar. Tall, thin, with long limbs glowing faintly in the dim light. Eyes that reflected sunlight in sharp, strange patterns. Ethan had seen nothing like them before. He knew immediately. These were the ones who had come for Luna. Alien hunters. They were not here for curiosity. They were here with purpose. Buddy growled low. The sound was deep and warning, vibrating through Ethan's chest. The hunters stopped. Their glowing eyes scanned the area. They had not expected the dog. Ethan's heart raced. He had never seen Buddy act like this before. It was more than protection. It was intelligence, strategy, and courage combined. Ethan whispered, "Stay close, Buddy." The dog remained crouched but did not move closer to Ethan. He was focused, waiting. Ethan slowly backed away, keeping his eyes on the hunters. He knew running would not help. They could see farther than he could. He needed another plan. From inside the house, Luna watched. She had learned fear quickly. She knew danger when she saw it, but she did not cry. She did not move. She stayed near the window, silent and tense. She had learned something about humans and dogs. Loyalty and care were real here. She trusted Ethan and Buddy. She had no other choice. The hunters took a step forward. One extended a long arm, fingers pointing like a weapon. Ethan noticed they communicated without words, signals in the air, moving together like a single unit. Their movements were precise, almost machine-like. But Buddy did not back down. He barked sharply, a single loud warning that echoed through the trees. The hunters hesitated. Ethan saw it clearly in their stances. They were used to submission. Animals, humans, smaller creatures, they rarely challenged them. Buddy was different. Buddy was fearless. Ethan scanned the area quickly. There was a small creek nearby. The water moved fast but shallow. If they could reach it, he thought, maybe they could use it as cover. He motioned to Buddy. The dog understood immediately, moving in front of Ethan, ready to act. Ethan grabbed a thick branch from the ground, not as a weapon but as a tool, something to defend or distract. The hunters advanced slowly, eyes glowing, scanning for Luna. Ethan called softly, "Buddy, wait." Buddy barked again, and suddenly the dog leapt forward. Not at the hunters directly, but toward the edge of the creek, barking loudly and running in a wide circle. Ethan followed quickly, keeping low and moving fast. The hunters paused, confused by the sudden, bold move. They had underestimated the dog. Ethan reached the creek. Water splashed around his boots. Buddy waited, tail low, body tense, ears alert. Ethan grabbed Luna's small hand through the window when he realized she had been peeking outside. She did not resist. Together, they moved quickly but quietly toward the edge of the trees, using bushes and low branches for cover. Buddy stayed ahead, turning back often, watching for danger. The hunters began to move again, slowly, carefully, but Ethan noticed something. They hesitated. They had seen the loyalty between Luna and Buddy. The dog's fearless protection made them cautious. Ethan felt a small rush of hope. He realized that even in this dangerous moment, the strength of trust and bond mattered. They reached a small hollow in the woods. Luna crouched beside Buddy, trembling slightly but safe for the moment. Ethan knelt beside her. "You're okay," he said softly. "We're safe for now." Luna nodded, pressing her hand to Buddy's fur. Ethan noticed how she seemed to gain strength from him, but even more from Buddy. The dog was not just protection, he was courage incarnate. The hunters moved slowly, scanning the forest. Ethan understood they would not give up easily. They were not human, and they did not fear humans in the normal sense. But the hunters were not used to animals like Buddy or humans who would fight quietly and carefully. Ethan realized that his small, loyal dog had more power than any weapon. Hours passed. Ethan, Luna, and Buddy stayed low, hidden beneath thick branches and leaves. The hunters circled the area, but they could not find them. Buddy growled occasionally, warning them away, keeping Ethan and Luna safe. Ethan watched him carefully, amazed at how the dog understood exactly what to do without words, without hesitation. As the sun began to set, the hunters retreated slightly. They would not leave entirely, Ethan knew, but they would pause for now. Ethan guided Luna and Buddy back toward the house, moving silently through the shadows. Buddy led the way, always alert, ears flicking at every sound. Luna followed closely, hands brushing against leaves and bark, learning the textures and smells. Ethan followed, his heart racing but confident that Buddy would not let anything happen. Back at the house, they entered quietly. Ethan locked the door and drew the curtains. Luna stayed close to Buddy, who lay down immediately, scanning the room as if he had never left the forest. Ethan exhaled slowly, feeling relief but also a deep respect for his dog. Buddy's courage had saved them all. Without him, Ethan was not sure they would have survived the encounter. That night, Ethan could not sleep. He thought about the hunters, about how precise and organized they were. He thought about Luna, her small body, her glowing skin, her wide eyes. And he thought about Buddy, fearless and protective, a silent guardian with more courage than any human. Ethan realized something important. The world was bigger than he had ever imagined. Dangers were out there, waiting beyond the trees, beyond the roads, beyond the quiet town. But he also realized that loyalty and trust, the bonds between beings, were stronger than fear. Buddy's love for Luna, Ethan's care for her, and even Luna's growing trust in them. They had all combined into something powerful. As he watched Luna sleep beside Buddy, Ethan promised himself he would protect her. Not because it was easy, not because he had to, but because it was the right thing. The dog had shown him the meaning of loyalty, and he could not turn away. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees. The hunters would not stop. Ethan knew that, but now he understood something else. They underestimated humans. They underestimated animals. They underestimated the bonds that could form between courage, loyalty, and care. The house was quiet now, but Ethan, Luna, and Buddy were ready. Together, they would face whatever came. Buddy would lead. Luna would follow, learning. And Ethan would guide, protecting and planning, as humans always did when they had to survive. And in that small house at the edge of the woods, 3 lives had become one team. The hunters would return, Ethan knew. But when they did, they would find more than a frightened girl. They would find loyalty, courage, and the quiet strength of beings who trusted each other completely. Ethan looked at Luna, asleep, then at Buddy, watching the door. He whispered softly, "We will face them, together." Buddy let out a low, satisfied growl as if agreeing. Luna stirred slightly, pressing closer to the dog, her small hand resting on his fur. Ethan realized then that the night had changed everything. No longer was Luna simply a lost girl. She was part of a bond that even hunters from the stars could not break. And even if danger came again, Ethan knew they would survive. Not because they were the strongest, but because they were together, and loyalty and trust were stronger than fear. The hunters would not know what hit them. And in that quiet house at the edge of the woods, Ethan smiled faintly. Together, they were ready for whatever the universe could send. The days after the hunters retreated were tense. Ethan, Luna, and Buddy stayed close together, never leaving the house for long. Ethan kept the curtains drawn and the doors locked. He knew the hunters would return. He also knew that staying calm and quiet was their only chance. Buddy never left Luna's side. He watched the shadows outside, ears twitching at every sound. Luna had learned to trust him completely. If Buddy moved, she moved. If he barked, she stayed quiet. Even with the danger, Ethan tried to bring some normalcy into their days. He taught Luna small things: how to pour water from a cup, how to open a simple door latch, how to move quietly in the house. She learned quickly. She was intelligent, sharper than any human child he had met, and her small hands were precise. Buddy often assisted her in ways Ethan did not expect. If she reached for something too high, Buddy nudged her gently. If she paused, unsure of the step to take, Buddy would sit still, waiting, giving her confidence. One morning, Ethan noticed something unusual in the sky. A faint shimmer of light hovered above the woods. It was soft and distant but clearly moving. He watched closely. The shape shifted slowly, scanning. It was not like the hunters. They were closer, faster, more aggressive. This was different. The movement felt patient, observing. Ethan realized that Luna's people or someone connected to them were watching from afar. He called Luna over. She tilted her head at the light. Her eyes reflected it, glowing softly. She made a sound, low and cautious. Ethan pointed to Buddy, then to the light, trying to communicate the need to stay calm. She nodded slightly. Buddy sat beside her, alert but calm, ready to protect her if needed. The light stayed for hours. Ethan and Luna remained inside, watching. Buddy moved to the windows, growling softly whenever the shimmer shifted closer. Ethan understood it was not hostile yet, but it was curious. He wondered what the observers would think when they saw the bond between a human, a dog, and an alien girl. Over the next few days, the light returned at times, always observing. Ethan tried to stay calm, but he could feel the tension in Luna. She would hide behind Buddy when the shimmer appeared. Buddy always stood firm, guarding her. Ethan realized that the observers were learning something about humans. They were noticing the quiet courage, the loyalty, and the care between beings. Ethan decided they needed to prepare. He gathered supplies: food, water, blankets, simple tools. He organized them in a small pack, ready to move if necessary. Buddy followed every step, his eyes alert, scanning the walls and windows. Luna watched quietly, mimicking Ethan's actions. She learned quickly, understanding the need for safety. One evening, Ethan set up a small perimeter outside the house. He used old boards, low fences, and simple traps to create alerts if anyone approached. Buddy ran along the line, sniffing, marking each corner. Luna followed, helping with small tasks. Ethan realized that even though she was small and young, she had learned much from the first encounter. She understood fear, protection, and trust. Buddy had taught her loyalty in ways Ethan could not. As night fell, the shimmer appeared again, brighter this time. Ethan watched closely. The observers hovered silently, scanning the house and surrounding woods. They did not approach. They did not attack. Ethan felt a mix of fear and curiosity. What did they want? What would they learn from what they saw? Buddy sat in front of Luna, his body tense but calm. She pressed against him, small hands resting on his fur. Ethan knelt beside them, trying to stay hidden in the shadows. He understood that the observers were studying more than just the girl. They were learning about humans and about loyalty that could not be broken by fear or danger. The next day, Ethan noticed subtle changes. The forest around the house seemed calmer. Animals returned slowly. Birds sang softly in the morning. It was as if the presence of humans, dog, and alien had created a balance that the watchers respected. Ethan realized that the observers were not just testing strength. They were studying connection, empathy, and courage. Ethan decided to help Luna explore small areas beyond the house. He stayed close, always with Buddy between them and any potential danger. They walked slowly through the yard, into the woods, observing quietly. Luna's eyes were wide with wonder, and she learned quickly. Buddy guided her, nudging her away from sharp branches or uneven ground. Ethan watched with admiration. The dog's patience and intelligence were remarkable. One afternoon, Ethan took Luna to a small creek near the woods. The water ran gently, clear and cool. He showed her how to drink carefully and how to feel the smooth stones with her hands. Luna laughed softly, a sound like music to Ethan's ears. Buddy lay nearby, eyes half closed, still alert, his ears twitching at every sound. Ethan realized that even in this simple act, bonds were strengthening. Trust, courage, and loyalty were teaching the alien girl about life among humans. As the days passed, the shimmer appeared less often. The observers seemed satisfied, learning that humans were not just weak or simple. They noticed the courage, the empathy, and the loyalty that guided Ethan and Buddy. Luna began to understand safety through these bonds. She moved more confidently, exploring, learning, and communicating in small ways. Her language remained gestures and sounds, but her expressions were clear. She trusted Ethan, and she trusted Buddy completely. Then one evening, Ethan heard a small sound outside the house. It was soft, deliberate. He peered through the window. The shimmer hovered close, more detailed now. He could see shapes moving inside the light, observing. Ethan felt a strange calm. They were not attacking. They were learning, studying. He realized that Luna's people, or their observers, were beginning to understand humans in a way they had not before. He whispered to Luna, "They are watching, but we are safe." She tilted her head, then pressed against Buddy as if understanding. The dog's loyalty was teaching her more than words ever could. Ethan realized that the bond between human and dog was a lesson for them. Courage and love could not be ignored, even across the stars. Over the next week, Ethan, Luna, and Buddy settled into a routine. They explored carefully, stayed alert, and communicated through gestures and presence. Luna grew stronger, more confident. She laughed softly when Buddy nudged her or wagged his tail. Ethan watched her, feeling hope. The observers remained in the sky, watching, learning. Ethan realized that humanity was being measured not by weapons but by heart. Loyalty, empathy, and courage were what made humans remarkable. One night, Ethan sat outside with Luna and Buddy. The stars shone bright above. The shimmer appeared again, hovering silently. Luna pointed to the sky, then to Buddy, then to Ethan. Ethan nodded. She understood the connection they had created, the strength that came from caring for each other. Buddy pressed against her, tail brushing her leg, calm and protective. Ethan realized that the observers had learned the most important lesson. Humans protect what they love, no matter the danger. Days turned into weeks. The shimmer no longer approached aggressively. The observers seemed to respect the bond between Ethan, Luna, and Buddy. The hunters who had once come close remained distant, hesitant. Ethan knew that loyalty and courage had changed everything. The galaxy, in some small way, had noticed humanity. Luna grew more confident. She explored the yard and woods with Ethan and Buddy. She learned simple words from Ethan, gestures, and basic signs. She laughed, ran, and played. Buddy followed her closely, always protective, always patient. Ethan watched them both, feeling proud and amazed. The girl had come from fear and danger, but she was learning trust and safety. One afternoon, Ethan decided to teach her something new. He showed her how to build a small shelter with sticks and leaves, a safe place in the yard. Luna followed carefully, learning each step. Buddy helped by nudging sticks and sitting beside her. Ethan realized that the simple act of building together strengthened bonds further. They were teaching her not just survival, but care, patience, and loyalty. The observers in the sky watched silently. They did not intervene. They had learned that humans were not just creatures of fear and weakness. They were clever, loyal, and brave. Ethan realized that Luna's safety was proof of a larger truth. Humanity's strength was not in weapons or technology, but in the way they cared for each other, in loyalty, courage, and love. That night, as Luna slept beside Buddy, Ethan watched the stars. He felt a sense of hope. The galaxy had seen the strength of humans. He knew the hunters would come again and dangers might rise. But he also knew that with loyalty, courage, and care, they could face anything. Buddy's eyes reflected the moonlight, calm and steady. Ethan whispered softly, "We are ready." Together, Luna stirred in her sleep, pressing closer to the dog. In that quiet house at the edge of the woods, a simple truth had been revealed. Humans were stronger than most believed. Even across the stars, their courage and loyalty were being noticed. And Ethan, Luna, and Buddy were living proof. The bond between human, dog, and alien girl had changed something unseen, something important. The galaxy had begun to understand that strength was measured not by fear, but by care, trust, and love. And as the wind moved through the trees, Ethan knew that whatever came next, they were ready. The observers had learned the lesson. The hunters would hesitate. And the small house, filled with courage, loyalty, and love, would stand firm against anything the universe could send. The morning was quiet. Sunlight filtered through the trees and touched the small house. Ethan sat on the porch drinking coffee, while Buddy lay beside him, eyes half closed but alert. Luna was awake inside, sitting near the window, looking at the sky. She had grown stronger over the weeks. Her small body moved with confidence now. Her hands were steady and her eyes no longer held fear. Ethan watched her silently. He wondered what she was thinking. He did not need words to know that she was aware of the watchers in the sky. The shimmer of light had returned, hovering softly, observing them from above. Ethan realized that Luna's people, or the observers, were giving her a choice. They wanted her to decide whether to stay with him or return to the stars. He took a deep breath and stepped inside. Luna looked up. Her eyes reflected both curiosity and uncertainty. She had learned much from him and Buddy, but she had also been shaped by her past. She had been hunted alone and far from home. Now she had warmth, safety, and care. Ethan knelt in front of her, careful to stay at her level. "You are safe here," he said softly. "You can stay. Or you can go. The choice is yours." Luna studied him. She pressed a small hand to Buddy, who leaned into her touch. Ethan noticed how much she relied on the dog's presence. He understood that Buddy was not just a protector. He was a teacher, a guide, and a friend. Luna had learned loyalty, courage, and love through him. She made a small sound and pointed to the sky. Ethan nodded. He understood that she remembered her people, the place she had come from, the life she had left behind. But then she looked at Buddy, her small face softening, and pressed her forehead gently against his fur. Ethan felt the quiet weight of her decision forming. The shimmer in the sky brightened slightly. Ethan realized that her people had seen her choice forming in silence. They were waiting, observing, giving her freedom to decide. Ethan stood slowly. "If you choose to go," he said, "know that we will not forget you. Buddy and I will always care, always." Luna nodded slightly. She stood, tiny and pale but firm. She looked at Buddy first, then at Ethan. She pressed her small hand into Buddy's fur one last time. Buddy responded immediately, nuzzling her gently, tail wagging softly. Ethan noticed her small smile. It was quiet, but it carried trust, love, and farewell all at once. They walked outside together. The wind moved softly through the trees. The shimmer grew brighter, moving closer, almost like a welcoming hand from the sky. Luna looked up and back at Ethan. She wanted to speak, but words were not there. Instead, she reached for his hand and squeezed it. Ethan squeezed back. It was a small gesture, but it held everything: gratitude, care, and memory. Buddy stood between Ethan and Luna, watching carefully. He growled softly, low, a warning to the world. Ethan knelt down beside the dog. "She's ready," he said quietly. Buddy tilted his head, eyes focused on Luna. He understood. She had grown, learned, and chosen her path. Luna lifted slightly off the ground. Her small body glowed faintly, illuminated by the light from the sky. Ethan and Buddy watched silently. The wind whispered through the trees and the house seemed to hold its breath. Luna floated higher, her eyes looking back once more. Ethan waved, tears forming, but he smiled through them. He knew she would be safe. He knew she had learned the strength of trust and care from humans, and especially from Buddy. Then slowly, she moved toward the shimmer. The light surrounded her, soft and gentle, wrapping her in warmth. Ethan watched her disappear into the glow, leaving behind only the echo of her presence. Buddy barked softly, a single, quiet note of farewell. Ethan stroked his dog's fur, feeling both sorrow and hope. They had done something remarkable. They had shown an alien girl the meaning of courage, loyalty, and love. After the shimmer faded, the night came quietly. Stars dotted the sky, calm and steady. Ethan sat with Buddy on the porch, reflecting. Luna was gone, but her presence remained. Ethan realized that the galaxy had seen something important. Humans had protected what was fragile, cared for what was different, and faced danger with courage. The Watchers had understood the lesson. The galaxy had begun to see humanity in a new light. Buddy rested his head on Ethan's lap. Ethan stroked him slowly. "She is safe," he whispered. "And so are we." Buddy wagged his tail softly, eyes closed, trusting him completely. Ethan felt the bond between them stronger than ever. It had carried them through fear, danger, and uncertainty. Loyalty and love had created something unbreakable. In the following days, life returned to a quiet rhythm. Ethan continued his routines, tending to the house, preparing meals, and exploring small parts of the woods. Buddy remained alert but calm. Ethan noticed that the air felt different. The forest, the animals, even the wind seemed quieter, respectful. It was as if the galaxy itself had acknowledged what had happened here. Ethan thought of Luna often. He imagined her learning, exploring, and perhaps telling others of the humans who had cared for her. He knew she would not forget him or Buddy. He would not forget her either. Her courage, her small hands, her wide eyes, and her trust had left a permanent mark on him. One evening, Ethan sat outside with Buddy at his side. The sky was clear, stars bright. He felt a quiet pride. Humans were not perfect. They were small, fragile, and often weak. But they had something greater. Loyalty, courage, and love could change lives even across worlds. Ethan realized that the galaxy had begun to notice what he had always known. Humans could protect, care, and inspire. As the wind whispered through the trees, Ethan spoke softly to Buddy. "We did good, Buddy. We did very good." Buddy leaned against him, a single, gentle breath as if agreeing. The bond between human and dog was stronger than any weapon, stronger than fear, stronger than distance. And in that quiet house at the edge of the woods, Ethan understood the truth. The universe was vast, filled with danger and unknown beings. But humanity had a power no one could measure with machines or weapons. It was the power of care, of loyalty, and of love. Luna had chosen her path, but she had learned from humans. She had learned courage from Buddy. She had learned trust from Ethan, and she had left with a story that would carry far across the stars. The galaxy had seen it. It would remember. Ethan looked at Buddy, now calm and content. "We will keep going," he said softly. "We will keep protecting, loving, and caring. That is who we are." Buddy wagged his tail slowly, resting his head back on Ethan's lap. The wind moved through the trees again, gentle and soft. The house, the woods, the stars, and the universe itself seemed to breathe quietly, in harmony with the bond they had built. And for Ethan, for Buddy, and for the small alien girl named Luna, the story was complete. Fear had been faced, danger had been met, and loyalty and love had won. The galaxy had witnessed something simple yet extraordinary. Humanity's promise had been shown in action, in care, in courage, and in heart. The night grew deeper, stars shining brighter. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the bond of the day, the past weeks, and the lessons learned. He felt hope. The galaxy had seen humans at their best, through a dog, a human, and a small alien girl who had learned what it meant to trust. And somewhere far away, the Watchers in the sky recorded the event silently. They had learned that humans were not weak. They had learned that loyalty, courage, and love could change even the vast universe. And that lesson, Ethan knew, would last far longer than fear, far longer than danger, and far longer than any shadow of doubt. He stroked Buddy one last time that night. The dog's eyes reflected the stars. Ethan whispered softly, "Good job, Buddy. We did everything right." Buddy gave a soft sigh, curling closer. The night passed quietly, the forest calm, and the universe above filled with distant, silent watchers who now knew something new. Humanity's strength was quiet, it was patient, it was loyal, it was courageous, and it had been witnessed. And in that quiet house at the edge of the woods, Ethan, Buddy, and the memory of Luna rested. Ready for whatever would come next, strong in heart and spirit, knowing that even in the vast universe, trust and love could light the darkest places. The story ended, but its echo would travel far.